Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you my players' money picks. And we're going to be doing things a little different today, but I'll explain why. And I greatly appreciate if you are visiting or stopping by for the first time. You're going to see a little different kind of show than I typically do, but somewhat similar. We're still going to dive into analysis just a little different way. And the reasoning is that if I went through the same kind of methodology for this event, I think I'd be doing you guys a disservice and definitely doing myself a disservice. And so I'm going to explain how we're going to do this a little different. First off, and as you can see, Patrick Reed and Mr. Spieth are pretty pumped as I am. And on that note, I am providing a promotion, a giveaway for this players event. It is for the Millie Maker. I am picking 10 winners, and all you need to do is like this episode, subscribe, and just tell me who you think is going to win the players in the YouTube comments or the Masters. I'll take either or. And then tomorrow on my show for sleepers, fades, and ownership projections, weather, all that kind of stuff, I will announce the winners. All right, so let's get into this. So first, I do want to cover what I covered on the preview show. The areas, this has not changed. This is, still what I'm looking at, and I'm working my way from the tee to the green. So in short, it is guys have to hit fairways. You can't do anything else if you're in the water the whole time. So it's pretty simple. Guys got to hit fairways. Then they got to stick it close to the pin if possible, and then they got to make putts. So no rocket science there. Proximity, I still looking at the guys that can are good with the pitching wedges, pretty much wedges, 8 irons, 9 irons. They're going to have to be able to hit sand saves. Par 5 scoring is huge. We're going to be looking at guys that make eagles, and because that's where they're going to make their hay. And then, of course, 3-putt avoidance. And lastly, I showed this in the preview, but just going to throw it up there real quick again. And really, the whole reason I'm bringing this up is, when we talk about Victor or Colin or some of these guys that if you look at their history, nothing's going to come up under the players, but actually they have played at least one round here. They also had multiple practice sessions here. So it's not a blind course to them. It's not brand new. But of course, guys with history here, that's it. I don't really know how much that helps. My feelings and why I'm kind of doing my show a little different today is typically I walk through the progression of, doing a bunch of different models and looking for correlation. And the problem is if I try to use comp courses and use past history, and if you go look at these guys, there's guys that have won here and they come out and missed a cut, or, it's such a different course because of how mentally challenging, how physically challenging, and like I said, and so I think really relying on the historical information this time, and we're going to be doing that, but we're going to be looking at it a little different way, is probably going to do us some disservice, at least from a comp course side. I mean, you could go in two directions. From a comp course side, you could try to look at, the Bermuda courses, similar length, all that stuff, what I typically do. But the problem is no course really fits this. You could go look at Pete Dye design courses like Harbortown. And I was going down this path. And the more and more I did it, I just said, I just don't think I'm really getting the true picture of who I want to play here. And ultimately, it's going to be the guys that just find lightning in a bottle. And as we all know, that's every weekend. But, the guys that win here typically, as I said, do not come back and do so well again. There is like the Webb Simpsons. That's kind of a freak. And actually, on all the models that I did run, Webb Simpson showed up every time. But again, you just don't know what they're going to bring to the plate. And this course, again, is just so demanding. So, okay. So I am using Fantasy National. I have no filters put on. Really what I am looking at is the last 24 rounds, which for these guys, that's about 6 rounds, 6 tournaments. And that's on average of what these guys played. Of course, you got some guys like Max who's played a ton of tournaments. You've got some guys like Bryson that hasn't played as many tournaments. And I'm going to still do a summary at the end of the guys that I'm looking at and I'm recommending that I'm going to go with. I'll talk about the guys that you might want to pick for one and done. My favorite bet. I'm also going to do something a little different, is picking the 5 guys that have the highest risk but the biggest reward, and I'll cover those 2 guys too. But the first thing is, let's talk about who I'm going with and who I'm not and why. So if you just look at the top, of course, Koepka's out. And so from the $10,000 to $11,000 range, we got to make a decision here. And actually, at first, I was leaning towards Rahm. And what I've come to is these first 2 indicators, as I kind of mentioned, good drives is my number one thing. And just so you understand what a good drive is from a stroke gain analysis, that is a tee shot that gave you the opportunity to, and you hit the green, is the short of it. So even if you're in the first cut of rough, it doesn't count if you're in the rough, but if you're in the first cut and you hit the green, that counts as a good drive. And actually, it explains it here if I hover over it. Um, but anyways, long story short, that is the number one major indicator for me. The next one I'm looking at is approach. So pretty much what I did is if these whoever I'm picking, they had to make the top 50 out of the field of 113 to even make it into the next look. And then of course, I mentioned really the next two things I'm looking at is eagles. How do they convert eagles? Because again, that's huge in this course. You have short par fives, three of them that they're going to need to make eagles because they're going to make mistakes. But to differentiate from the field and to move up the ladder, if you looked at what Rahm did, like on the previous 2019 Saturday, until he lost it on the final day on hole 11, he was making eagles, and these guys are going to need to make eagles. So that would I would say would be next. And then there's a ton of these par fours between 450 and 500. They got to manage those. Yes, if they have the ability, of course, make a birdie, but worst case, make pars. And then the last thing, which is still critical, is they can't be three putting because all the good stuff they were trying to do kind of goes out the window if you're whacking it all over the green. Okay. So with that said, I was kind of going into this that I was going to be between probably, well, honestly, it was Rahm. And I'll tell you why on Rory. I heard Rory's after the Arnold Palmer, and I've been on and off with Rory. And he just seems like he is, I mean, the simplest way to put it is he is in a funk. I don't want to say he doesn't care, but he's just in a funk. And he literally came out and said that after his presser that he's, searching, finding something that's going to ignite him. He just seems lost a little bit. And I don't know if it's he had the kid and his mind is elsewhere. I don't know if it's, he stated that there's just not enough fans there, but he's played in some tournaments where he's had fans. All in all, and also him coming as, he was the past winner in 2019, still the champion. Because the 2020 season, of course, did not happen at the Players, but also just seeing his eagle rate again. This was looking at the past 24 rounds, and then it's ownership a little bit with these guys at top. It's ownership now. He's the least owned between the 10 and 11 right now from an ownership projection. But everything I'm leaning towards is Dustin Johnson, and of course. These two things he's done elite. And again, this is looking at the past 24 rounds. The next two things he does very elite is, his eagles and also between the 450, and like I said, this is where, because, Rory's had the opportunities to make eagles. Same with Rahm. And this again, over the last 6 rounds, I just want to keep stating that, but they just haven't been converting them. And this has been the putter. Now, of course, you can say, hey, Kirk, DJ just shot or lost 10 strokes putting at his last event. And I went through his whole history, and he's never come close to losing 10 strokes putting. I think the highest I found was around 6 strokes lost, and it's very rare. So I'm not worried about that. Honestly, I'm more worried about off the tee. I'm hoping that he does not put that Sim 2, or he figured out a Sim 2 that he really is proven and likes. As we know, he put it in on that Thursday round at, I believe it was the WGC, and it just went awry. And, of course, he didn't play at the Arnold Palmer. Okay, so if you want to know who I'm going with off the bat, and like I said, we can, we already know recent form is amazing. He had a T5 here last year. I mean, he's trending in the right direction here. But again, I'm not so much concerned about course history. I'm recent results, of course, matters. And then his putting splits, Bermuda is one of his, as you see, not his favorite putting surface. POA is. But I'm not concerned with that here. He's won on POA, or I'm sorry, on Bermuda before. So that's not the worry. Okay. So that's my guy in that range. Now let's talk about the 9,000 range. And so the same thing, I sat here and went through these guys, and actually, again, everybody's kind of back on the DeChambeau. But you can see, he had a decent driving at the past tournament, but it can go wayward, and I'm still worried. And he says that it was only the C game that he was playing at the API and won. Of course, Justin Thomas, same thing. The mental things that have been going on, just outside noise that's been going on. His driver's been all over the place. From an ownership projection, you see he's at 13.8. So people are going to take a risk on him because he is so elite. which you don't see it on here, but from that, 75 to 150 yard range, that is important, but I didn't put it as one of the key things. I think most of these guys can be very hot with wedges. And on that side note, Rory has been terrible with his pitching wedges. Another reason why I'm kind of fading Rory. But I'm just feeling, even if Justin Thomas comes out and, maybe as a first round leader, could happen. I just don't think he can go 4 days in a row and actually come out in a top 5 position. We'll see. Just curious, you can see from a tournament history, and again, I'm not saying that's all, but from a tournament history, it's kind of bear through. And I think the mental part of this is so key that I just can't go with Justin. DeChambeau, from a mental perspective, I think this guy could do great. He's number 1 in Eagles. There's a lot, and that's why I'm doing it this way, so you guys can make your own decisions. But Bermuda is a positive surface for him. Of course, he's coming off that win. For me, that is a little bit of an inhibitor, and people say, but tell me the last guy who won back-to-back tournaments. I'm talking back-to-back weeks. I'd have to go do some crazy research, but I can't even name it. But again, you don't need him to win. You need him to top 5 to pay off that kind of price. But, out of everybody in this range, I've got 3 guys in the 9,000. Excuse me. And I probably might even start a lot of my builds from a GPP perspective right here. And so you can see, approach, of course, Morikawa is number 1. The one guy that does have really good course history here, at least over the last 3 years, I already mentioned, is Webb Simpson. Webb on a shorter Bermuda course, the guy just navigates. Of course, he's a past winner. Has there been some little things, but there's only 2 people out of the whole list, 113 players, that are all green, and that's Webb Simpson, and I'll just give it away, is Max Homa over the last 24 rounds. So anyways, Webb is definitely going to be in my player pool. Of course, his ownership projection is a little higher, but I'm willing to eat this chalk because I think these guys could just do really well here, and it's what I'm looking for. Of course, Hovland out of the 3 are the least owned, and that's, I think the general public, what they got to see him kind of, falling back on the Saturday, Sunday, but I'm not worried about that. We know at time to time that, these guys are going to be missing putts. Look at DJ, the best player in the world. And it was a putter that, he struggled a little bit on Saturday, Sunday with the 2 things that he does very well, approaching and driving. But ultimately, through his body of work, there might not be a better ball striker from tee to green out there than Victor Hovland. I think he's better than Morikawa from off the tee. I think Morikawa's got an edge, of course, on approach. But all in all, these are the 3 guys in the 9,000 range that I'm going with. If you're curious, of course, Simpson gains almost a half stroke on the field when he's on Bermuda. The best putting surface for Morikawa is Bermuda, but, not by much. And, he went from, if we think about the Genesis, implemented the new grip change, was a disaster. I think he lost 6-7 strokes putting or something like that. Then it came out and just gained on putting at the workday, won that. So again, it's, it can, within just 7 days, things could change. And then again, from Victor, his only positive is bent, but, he's implemented that, whatever it is, 5 point, putting system that he really believes in, and it's worked for him. And, I'm going to stick with it. Okay. Enough on that. Patrick Cantlay, he does make, as I was mentioning, the list of 50, breaking the top 50 of approach and good drives. But his eagle conversion is pretty high. I didn't like that. I didn't like, the other areas, to be honest. And again, I got to make some decisions. Also, of course, he's coming off whatever that was, a stomach bug, a hangover. He's going to maybe have a hair rust. But as you see, he only had 2 things in the green. Bermuda is his best surface. The guy's steady. I'm not, and if we even look at his past, here he goes, a perfect example. He missed a cut in 2019, but had a couple 22. So again, it just shows you the randomness you're going to see from these guys. So I'm actually on Finau, also in the low 9s. Of course, amazing recent form. The guy is top 20 in the 2 areas that I'm looking at, top 5 for Eagles. And so like all that, and if we look just so you can see, he's trending in the right direction. I guess cut 57th and the 22nd. But again, literally, I just think this course, I mean, guys, as I said, it can be just so volatile from time they play it. Patrick Reed's outside the area that I'm looking at. He does these things very well, and this he leads on the par five. So that's that's pretty amazing. Of course, his around the green actually, as I showed in the preview show, it's not where it usually is, just from a pure stroke game perspective. But still, I think he's top two, top best, second or best, third best putter since the 2021 season. Um, I'm just a little worried with this, but the guy's he just battles. Bermuda's his second best surface. But yeah, not on Reed. I think Scheffler's an interesting play. I mean, the guy met two of the standards. He ranks 12th from good drives, but on approach, he just kind of is where he can miss. But look what he's done here. So he was, I kind of like I weighed between Finau and him from a $200 perspective. My pick was Finau, and I'll just leave it at that. That's simple. Was not expecting to play Daniel Berger as one of my main picks, but the more analysis I did, and then just kind of looking at this from this perspective, the guy, is a lead off the tee, good on approach. You put him on a shorter course for whatever reason. If you think of AT&T or even the Charles Schwab that he won coming out of the COVID, the guy does very well there. He's best surface gains a half stroke. So really, if you think, I think of Daniel Berger as like a Webb Simpson light. I mean, literally, if you look at their stats on this, it's it is almost identical when you lay the two against each other. So if you were trying to save some money on that side, I guess the 3-putt avoidance would be the one thing that would get him. But still a great putter. Matsuyama, he's just been off and on, but he just doesn't meet this criteria. This also made me a little nervous on how he manages the longer par fours. Again, a lot of that comes down to putting. Again, he led and tied the course record with a 63 at the 2020. So again, my thoughts were possible about going with Matsuyama, but again, you can't pick them all. I'm going to go with Berger out of this kind of range. You got Jordan Spieth, who everybody's on. I think he's doing great. I have all beliefs in him, and I know this is past history, but it includes. I mean, it's 24 rounds. That driver, I'm just still a bit terrified of. I got to look at some of his course history, but and just so you understand, 2015, 2016 was his heyday. I mean, Jordan was playing the best golf Jordan's ever played in his life. Even better than he was today. He had the magic, everything you want to put in there, and he still missed a cut. So on that note is a little bit why I'm fading Jordan. Now, he's been doing amazing, and who knows? I just don't think this is a tournament where he gets his first win in whatever it's been, 3 years or so. Terrell Hatton, I've been preaching Terrell Hatton for the last two outings, two tournaments, and he's, kind of came up and bit me in the ass. I was actually shocked that his projected ownership was over 10%. Again, projected. I'm recording this Tuesday about 3 p.m. Eastern, but the guy just does everything I want. Now, the Eagles is a little low, but again, kind of my criteria was, for these guys up here, they had at least hit 4 of the boxes I'm looking at and do it very well compared to the field. And again, that's kind of the main thing that's driving me. Also his past tournament history, not good. But I can't really base everything off that. So I'm on Terrell again. I didn't think I'd be on Terrell, but I am on Terrell Hatton. And again, these are the main key reasons why. And of course, Bermuda's best. Hopefully he doesn't hit a couple in the water and lose his shit. But, and I thought about always going with that narrative, trying to pick guys that were just calm and just, could take the ups and downs with a grain of salt. But that would eliminate quite a few guys. And so can't do that. Casey, again, even though it says here from a tournament history, the 2 WDs back, that's kind of crazy. But his game, fits this course. But just this area here, these other intangibles that I'm looking for, just he didn't make it there. Also, I thought Sanjay M, but his approach being where it's at, he just couldn't make it. But again, small details, good on Bermuda. The guy's steady. Of course, you got Fitzpatrick, who I think could do well here, but again, him converting the Eagles that needed makes me a little nervous. His driver can get a little off base, but we all know what he can do. Around the green and with the putter. You got Adam Scott has got some of the best course history here, but the game's just not there right now, and he's all over the map. I cannot put him in. You got everybody saying, "Oh, Jason Day is trending." This happens all the time with Jason Day. Oh, here we go. Jason Day is going to be back, and then it's just a fiasco. And I can't play Jason Day. I do like Cam Smith. He's, as you kind of see, I just think for whatever reason, this guy's trending again. I think he could be very live here. I'm not making him as one of my top picks, but I definitely could not question you if he did. It's just making sure he hits the fairway. Once he gets on the fairway, the closer he gets to that green, the deadlier he gets. A lot of people on Fleetwood, but again, this, all red here makes me nervous. And this, he's had a couple decent past outings. Yep, not going to be on Fleetwood. We'll talk about Louis, Justin in a little bit. Joaquin's my next guy at 7,700 that, again, elite here. What the two areas that I need. Makes eagles, manages those par fours okay. Bermuda is not his best surface, but he's not an amazing putter. He can just get super hot with it. But has no tournament history here. I don't know if he played in the 2020 for at least a round. But yeah, of course, he had the win. Boy, it's going back now. I'm blanking. But also had solid, just solid recent history. Will Z, he almost ticks every box, and I think Will in my GPP probably has some Will Z. I will here or there, but I just want he's not going to be one of my main picks here. I'm just trying to see anybody else I want to touch on there. So I talked about Max. This was a little bit shocking to me. First off, he's number one in 3-putt avoidance, which I think is interesting. But yeah, to be elite on approach and good drives, again, this is our last 24 rounds is what I'm looking for. Also converts eagles. So really, like I said, him and I believe it was Webb that really shined in all these categories. Abraham Answer, I think, could be sneaky, even though somehow his projected ownership's a little bit higher. I don't know what so he had and maybe that's it because he had a 12th place. I'm more interested because if you look at another Pete Dye course, Harbor Town, he's actually done very well there. So that was also what kind of, interests me now from an eagle perspective. But, that all comes down to putter. And, he is at least positive on Bermuda. Harris English, of course, had a great, I thought about Harris, and I think from, the ability, that's kind of odd that he's missed a cut every time, but of course he was in second place after the first round, but who knows how that would have transpired. But Harris English could be an interesting play. Russ Henley, and I'll talk a little bit about Russ, but this is the forgotten guy all the time, and he spurts up. You can see, maybe not the greatest course history, but I'm not worried about that so much. But he's also had recent forms been a little off. Of course, he had that nice run at the Zozo and the CJ Cup where he was popping up their top fives or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a very interesting, exciting play for me. And of course, I'll talk a little more about him as we get through. But Bermuda, the guy can putt. The guy is solid from the tee to the greens. He's got everything I need. And for that price tag, I think he's one of the better value plays. But I don't think anybody's talking about him. Of course, Corey Connors, I hated him last week and learned my lesson. And again, the guy is just, he'll get you to the green. It's just hopefully he can make the putts. And the guy converts eagles. I think, again, a great value at 7,400. And he's actually had a T41 here, which, again, not super concerned. But, Arnold Palmer, the Bay Hill is somewhat of a comparable course, even though I told you can't really compare. But, like I said, there is definitely signs that there's some positive showing. Also, on a side note, I don't know if I mentioned this in the preview, but the greens are running right now. I think they said at 13 during the practice rounds, and their expectations are they're just going to get faster. So, he handled himself way better than I thought he would on those greens, and hopefully that just stays that way. I know Sunday he had a few misses, but overall in all, the guy did great from a putting aspect. Sam Burns, I was not going to be on Sam Burns. And like I said, if you see, he does just fall out of the good drives, but he has been driving the ball, if I probably pulled this up over the last few rounds, better than 84. But his approach, his putting on Bermuda, everything from a price perspective, I got to roster him and hope he finds fire again like he did at the Genesis. and he's shown where he's competed on Sundays. Just a few things didn't go his way. So again, for the price, I like that. Lanto's just been steady. Yeah, he's not converting to eagles, but look what he does on those par fours. Great off the tee approach, 3-putt avoidance. Bermuda's positive. Recent results all in the 20s. Typically, I've always said if you see this, and I'm not saying Lanto is going to win the Players. That'd be pretty cool if he did, but um, whenever you see a guy in the teens or the low 20s just steadily, they're about ready to pop for a big win. I'm not saying again that that's going to happen. And I believe lastly is Tringali is the one I wanted to talk about. Again, doing everything elite that we're looking for, not converting the Eagles, a lot like Lanto. I think these two are just so similar to me. But everything else is right where I want them and for that price. And the guy's had good recent form. And, from a history perspective, he's done pretty well there. Again, not that that's what I'm all based off. Okay, so I summarize this for you guys on my picks. Okay, so my top 5 picks are, just in summary, we're going with Webb Simpson. And again, amazing course here, but it actually rates the highest out of all the players in the 5 buckets that I'm looking at. And also, if you've not used them for one and done, I think this is a great place to use them. Of course, there's always Wyndham. You can hold them back, but it's I don't know what the value is for your one and done tournaments. If it matches up with what the value is from what these guys get paid when they win this tournament, which I'm guessing it is as a percentage or whatever, or you get the money that they win for the tournament, is how I understand. I don't do one and done, but I think he would be a great play. Max Homa, these two are my top picks. And like I said, they're firing on all cylinders in the areas that I want. You got Tony Finau again. Just write him down for a second place finish. DJ looking for a huge comeback here. Best player in the world. Just don't lose 10 strokes putting and keep the ball in play there, DJ. And then Colin Morikawa, just keep doing what you're doing. And that is my top 5 plays. And again, people always ask. I think you can, of course, if you want to bet, the odds on these guys are not the greatest. Maybe I don't know what Max Homa's coming. I haven't looked at it, but from a GPP perspective, definitely this is a good place to start your lineups. My next 5 picks, Corey Connors not going to make that mistake again. Need a guy that can get on the greens, and we'll worry about the putting. Hopefully, he can just keep doing what he's doing. Same with Victor Hovland. You're kind of notice on most of these guys, elite ball strikers. You got Terrell Hatton hoping that he keeps his attitude in check. You got Daniel Berger, just put him on a small Bermuda course, see him go. And then Joaquin Niemann, who out of all of them, I'd say he's probably the higher risk, higher reward guy. But yeah, I think all great ball strikers. Then my last 5 picks, Russ Henley. I got him at 100 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. I'm guessing he's still at that. I don't know how many people are putting money on Russ Henley, but he's my favorite bet. So I'm just let you in on that. Of course, you got the Tringali doppelgangers with Lanto Griffin. Abraham Ancer, he's just been quietly kind of going along. I'm just waiting for him to get his first win, and why not? He could be a first winner here. It's happened before, like Siwoo Kim. I think it'd be great. And then, of course, Sam Burns. Just hope Sam keeps it together. I went through and looked at ownership projections, and I picked out the guys that I think are maybe your highest risk but highest rewards. And I actually think, funny enough, I don't know if I would consider Lee Westwood a high risk, but if you go look at what he did over in Europe, it was steady. I think he had like either a top 5 at Abu Dhabi. So he's had some success there. But of course, he's just coming off the second place finish. We just saw, but his ownership right now is less than 2%. All these guys on here, last I checked, are less than 2%. Some of them are less than 1%. Like, I'm pretty sure Justin Rose, I believe it might have been Leishman, were like 0.9% owned, at least, again, projection ownership right now. All these guys have their downside, right? We got, of course, JR with the back issues, so I understand that. Leishman, this course and everything could fit him. He's just got to be elite in ball striking. Funny enough, with Ricky, it hasn't been so much. His irons kind of were a little off and on at the API, but he's been really good off the tee, and his irons can get hot. It's just the putter, funny enough, is what's been holding him back. And then you got Harris English, who also, I don't know if he was 2% owned, but he was really close to that. again, he's never made a cut here, but if he's on with his game, hitting that little butter fade, a lot like I think him and Sanjay M are very similar in the way they play. Just right now, Harris has been, or yeah, English has been a little bit of funk. Lastly, I was thought for sure I'd have Louis Oosthuizen on here, but projection ownership had him around 7%, which is mind blowing. And we'll see how that all works out when people actually pull the trigger on these guys. I'd say the common player that comes in for the master, the common DFS guy that just pops in to have a little action on the players or, any of the majors, and watched golf, a little bit is, they're not going to pick Louis Oosthuizen. So I think it's some of the industry guys, even like myself, that have been talking about, this is a good place to play him, even though literally, he could, be carrying his bag to go to the tee and just decide that he sees something or wants to go do something different. He is very high volatility from a withdrawal spot. So that's it. I just wanted to pull up those guys, give you those kind of thoughts too, just so you know if you need to differentiate who I still think could provide value. That's a big thing in this, right? Is that you have 113 players, so you're already going to have higher ownership. You've got the cost factor for building if you want to call it a balanced build, it's all set up just like in any majors. So long story short, you're going to have to differentiate. I'm not saying, don't put this lineup together. This is not your team to start with, but if you plug in one of these guys, you're definitely going to differentiate. And that's it. I greatly appreciate you spending the time with me. I hope you like that way of flow. I just really felt like I'd be doing a disservice to us if I just sat there and tried to go through the correlation model thing, because I just think this will not work for the players. And lastly, I've stated this before, just note to self, if you have Prime Video, get the PGA Live app. They are providing full access. I think they have like something like 90 cameras set up, so you can pick which groups you want to watch. A lot like what the Masters do from a viewing perspective. So that's free on Thursday. So if you want to watch a ton of coverage, that's the way to do it. And again, I would appreciate greatly if you would click the like button, share with anybody else you think might get value from this. Subscribe if you haven't. Free content as right now, as you see, no commercials, no promotions. It's we'll keep it that way for a little while. And then if you have any questions further that I can help you with, feel free to either leave me a comment here or hit me up on the Twitter sphere at DFS Golf Guru. And lastly, don't forget to enter in the promotion. I will be announcing that tomorrow, the winners. Thanks again, guys. All the best of luck to us.